call the House to order. All right, thank you very much for joining us. My name is Ronald Magumo, and I'm with the National Association of Youth Organizations, NAYO, an umbrella association of youth organizations that are working in Zimbabwe. And we are here today with my colleagues, the NAYO Board Secretary, Dr. Prolific Mataruse, who is on my extreme right, then Diana Harawa, who is also with the National Association of Youth Organizations, NAYO. So we are here today to issue this press statement on the continued water crisis in Zimbabwe. Recently, NAYO launched the water crisis campaign, which is called the hashtag Claim Your Water Rights, which seeks to catalyze the agents of citizens in terms of claiming their right to water. We understand that the Constitution of Zimbabwe under Section 77 knows the need for government and other stakeholders to make sure that all the citizens do have and do access safe, clean and potable water. So following the launch of that particular campaign, we are here today to issue this press statement, and the order that we shall use is that I will allow the NAYO Board Secretary, Dr. Mataruse, to issue and read out the statement to us. Then after that, we also take some questions and comments if there are any. So at this particular time, allow me to give this particular moment to the NAYO Board Secretary, Dr. Prolific Mataruse, to read out the statement for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to welcome you to this event where we're speaking about something that we are so passionate about, that we're working around. It's not just about passion, but it's because also the issues are urgent, especially if you look from the communities like Chitungiza, like Mbari. The situation is quite dire. So we are taking steps and actions in this campaign from that perspective. So the National Association of Youth Organizations, NAYO Africa, is a youth umbrella body for youth organizations working in Zimbabwe. Its vision is to see a repositioned, redefined and enhanced role of youth in community and national, regional and international developmental processes. Its work seeks to redress the challenges that youth are facing and contribute towards their active participation in developmental processes through coordination, advocacy, mobilization, capacity building, and information sharing initiatives. Currently, NAYO has a membership of over 184 youth organizations and about 1,500 youth advocates from 10 provinces of Zimbabwe. In commemoration of the International Human Rights Day, NAYO, in partnership with youth and civil society organizations, is launching a campaign on the right to water, which will see youth defending the right to water. The hashtag Claim Your Water Rights is a mass mobilization campaign that aims to awaken people to the injustice of their situation and spur them to claim their human rights to safe water and sanitation. A bit of background. Around 2.2 billion people lack safe water around the world, while 4.5 billion people do not have safe toilets. This is not an inconvenience. It is a grotesque injustice and a state of emergency. We repeat, it is a grotesque injustice and a state of emergency. With just 10 years, for example, to achieve universal water, access to water and sanitation, which is SDG 6, there's no time for false promises. We need agent financing and delivery of services to citizens. Water is very important for a healthy life. No one can exercise other rights to work, to life, and to education if they do not enjoy the right to water. The right to water is the right of everyone to access sufficient, safe, accessible, and affordable water for personal and domestic uses. Section 77, subsection A of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, amendment number 20, guarantees the right to safe, clean, and potable water. This provision reflects Zimbabwe's obligations to provide water to people in Zimbabwe, as required in the human rights instruments that the country has accepted. And these include the African Charter on the Rights of the Child, and Protocol to the African Charter on the Rights of Women in Africa, among others. The United Nations also passed a resolution in 2010 recognizing that water and sanitation is a human right. Other laws include the Water Act of 1998, National Water Authority Act of 1998. Provision of clean and potable water is essential for the full enjoyment of the right to life and other rights like right to health. This means that the government of Zimbabwe must provide water to everyone, boys, girls, women, and men. The right to water contains both freedoms and entitlements. So I emphasize freedoms, freedoms and entitlements. They are not things that, they are not a privilege. They're entitlements. These are things that people are supposed to have. The freedoms include the right to maintain access to existing water supplies necessary for the right to water, and the right to be free from interference, such as the right to be free from arbitrary disconnections or contamination of water supplies. Moreover, the elements of the right to water must be adequate for human dignity, life and health. In commemorating the International Human Rights Day, youth are standing up and making a clarion call to the government of Zimbabwe at its various levels to respect, protect, and fulfill the right to water as provided for within the Constitution by ensuring the following things. Water availability. The water supply for each person must be sufficient and continuous for personal and domestic uses. These uses ordinarily include drinking, personal, sanitation, washing of clothes, food preparation, personal and household hygiene. The current water rationing regime within households going for more than 4 days without water violates the right to water. Water quality, the second thing that was recommended to the government. The water required for each personal or domestic use must be safe, therefore free from microorganisms and chemical substances that constitute a threat to a person's health. Furthermore, water should be of acceptable color, odor, and tastes for each personal or domestic use. The third recommendation we are making is on water accessibility. Water and water facilities and services have to be accessible to everyone without discrimination. Accessibility has several overlapping dimensions. Physical accessibility. Water and adequate water facilities and services must be within safe physical reach for all sections of the population. Sufficient, safe, and acceptable water must be accessible within or in the immediate vicinity of each household, educational institution, and workplace. With thousands walking long distances to access long water, there are serious challenges to accessibility of water in both urban and rural areas. Economic accessibility. Water and water facilities and services must be affordable for all. The direct and indirect costs and charges associated with securing water must be affordable and must not compromise or threaten the realization of other human rights. Even in times of severe resource constraints, the vulnerable must be protected by the adoption of relatively low-cost targeted programs. The current moves at the privatization of water will only disenfranchise access by the less privileged members of society. So by privatization, we are referring to the current issues that are happening where people are buying water, sometimes with $5 per bucket. In communities like Chitungwiza, this is a lived reality. Non-discrimination. Water and water facilities and services must be accessible to all, including the most vulnerable or marginalized sections of the population, in law and in fact, without discrimination on any of the prohibited grounds. The state must also make sure that women are not excluded from decision-making processes concerning water resources and entitlements. That the disproportionate burden women and the young bearing the collection of water should be alleviated. So it's usually the girl child, it's usually the mothers that are the ones fetching water at the boreholes, the alternative sources of water that people have resorted to. So all this, what we've been talking about, calls for the government of Zimbabwe to do certain things, to put in place measures to curb the pollution of water sources, which continues unabated with an adverse effect of increasing cost of water treatment that has ripple effects on water quality and supply. Several dam construction projects have been mooted since 1983. And the current water crisis facing the nation demands that such dams be acted upon with urgency. The construction of dams like Kunji, like I'm forgetting the other name, by Musami Dam. Yes, thank you so much. Musami Dam. Those projects have been mooted from as far back as 1983. The projects have been on the tables. Actually, they're older than us, as far back as Minister Chichizero and Mugabe. So these are things that need to be addressed. We are calling on the government of Zimbabwe to prioritize in its 2020 budget the construction of alternative water sources to increase water supply within the country and plug the growing privatization of water. We are also calling for the government of Zimbabwe to prioritize the construction of water facilities that are gender sensitive and take care of women's needs. Must be introduced in areas that are prone to water cuts and water shortages. This will curb the disproportionate burden and risks which women are exposed to when accessing water that includes sexual harassment, rape, domestic violence, among others. So in working in Chitungwiza, we have actually dealt with similar cases. So this is actually something that's happening. We also call on the government of Zimbabwe to take progressive steps towards realizing the need for potable clean water in educational institutions, or homes, and business facilities across the whole country. Children across the country are missing out on school while they spend long hours collecting water from the limited available sources. And lastly, we call on the government of Zimbabwe to put in place measures to ensure that domestic water must not be disconnected arbitrarily, especially for reasons of failing to pay the rates across the country where water supply is metered. So this is the end. I hand back to the chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Mataruse, for issuing out that statement on behalf of us, NAYO. At this particular moment, I will open the floor for any questions from the members of the media, if there are any. Thank you. Okay, I go once. Yes.
My name is Tendai Kwamumbe.
Okay.
I'm with the Spotlight Online News. Okay, my question is on if you are working with